lost my balance. And you know, that's when the colors started to change. And you know, that's when the colors started to change. And it was somewhere then I started to feel covered in chaos. And it was somewhere then, don't look at me.
हुआ हमारा सफर 2 साल पहले, लेके उम्मीदों की अनगिनत लहरें। इसी बहाने गाँव जाने का मौका मिला और उनसे सीखने का अनुभव अनोखा मिला। गाँव वालों से उनका विश्वास मिला और शुरू हुआ हमारे जीत का सिलसिला। पल भर में उन्होंने हमें अपना बना लिया और अपने गांव में जल्द से समा लिया। हमने और उन्होंने उन्नति करने की ली है ठान, वही होगी भारत की नई पहचान। वापसी पर सब कुछ थम गया था, क्योंकि उन सब के प्यार से नया परिवार जो बन गया था। जुड़ जाओ इसमें और बन जाओ इस परिवार का हिस्सा। यादों में खुशियों का घर बनाएगा हर एक वो किस्सा।
Namaskar, I am Amit Bajpai on the behalf of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan Cell RGIT. Today we are here at Troli village of Chiplun Tehsil in Maharashtra. We have came here to check the current status of project which we have implemented in the month of May 2019. Now it was the time for the implementation of the project. Our project team put forth the different rainwater harvesting techniques such as CCT, Nala bunding and the borewell recharging. But considering the geographical area of the village, the team decided to implement the borewell recharging project near the already existing borewell. Hence for implementation, equipment such as 1.5 HP motor, control panel, electric cable, pipeline was purchased. By using the conventional digging method, a pit was found around the borewell and the filter was formed near the borewell pipe. Thus, the project was successfully implemented on 18th May 2019. As the project was implemented in the month of May, the result was suspected to come 5-6 months later. So today, in the month of January, we have came here for doing the survey of our already existing borewell recharging project.
माझं नाव प्रेरणा विकास शिंदे, मुक्काम रिक्टोळी, तालुका चिपळूण, जिल्हा रत्नागिरी या गावची मी सरपंच आहे. तरी आमच्या गावामध्ये राजीव गांधी इन्स्टिट्यूट ऑफ टेक्नॉलॉजी या कॉलेजच्या या मुलांनी येऊन परत त्यांच्या असणाऱ्या कॉलेजच्या मॅडम किरण चौधरी मॅडम व त्यांचे भोसतेकर सर तसेच ह्या मुलांनी येऊन मार्च मध्ये आमच्या गावामध्ये चांगल्या प्रकारचं एक बोरवेलला रिचार्ज केलं. त्याच्यामुळे आमच्या गावाच्या बोरवेलचं भरपूर प्रकारचं पाणी वाढलेलं आहे. ह्या मुलांनी खरोखर आमच्या गावामध्ये येऊन जे बोरवेल रिचार्ज केली त्याच्यामुळे आमच्या गावामध्ये ते असणारी इंदापूर वाडी ही डोंगराच्या वरती टेकडीवर वाडी असणारी ह्या वाडीला भरपूर प्रकारचं एक पाणी वाढलेलं आहे. चांगल्या प्रकारचं त्या वाडीला एक सुविधा झालेली आहे. तिथं असणारी सह्याद्रीच्या कुशीत असणारी ही वाडी आहे. त्या वाडीला कुठे पाण्याचा कोणत्याही प्रकारचा स्रोत नसल्यामुळे ह्या मुलांनी केलेल्या सहकार्याबद्दल खरोखर त्या मुलांचे आम्ही आभार मानले पाहिजेत. संपूर्ण गावाच्या वतीने मी त्या मुलांचे, त्या मॅडमचे, सरांचे, सर्वांचे आभार मानते. ह्या मुलांनी येऊन संपूर्ण गावचा आमचा सर्वे करून असणारे पाण्याचे जे स्रोत आहेत त्या ठिकाणी कसं पाणी वाढेल, कशी ह्या गावाची पाण्याची एक सुविधा लोकांना कसं स्वतःहून पाणी उपलब्ध ह्या गावात होईल असं संपूर्ण एक मार्गदर्शन ह्या संपूर्णपणे गावाला त्यांनी केलेलं आहे. चांगल्या प्रकारचं गावाला सहकार्य करून आमच्या ज्या अडीअडचणी आहेत त्या आम्ही संपूर्णपणे गावाने त्यांना सांगितलेल्या आहेत. त्याच्यामुळे खरोखर अशीच त्यांच्याही आम्हाला उन्नत भारत अभियान ह्या लोकांची व ह्यांची सर्वांची आम्हाला जे काही सहकार्य मिळालं उन्नत भारत अभियानसाठी किंवा राजीव गांधी इन्स्टिट्यूट ऑफ टेक्नॉलॉजी ह्या मुलांनी सुद्धा आमच्या गावामध्ये येऊन वारंवार आमच्या गावाची पाहणी करून आमच्या ज्या काही अडीअडचणी असून त्यांनी ज्या पद्धतीने जे काही काम केलं आहे त्याच्याबद्दल मी त्यांच्या गावच्या वतीने आभार मानते.
Concluding the first phase of rainwater harvesting, it becomes clear that there may lie a future scope for overcoming this water scarcity issue in the village. Students, in accordance with faculty, has been continuously working to fulfill this initiative. Finally, we can say that Unnat Bharat Abhiyan has created a platform for the institutions to contribute their skills to the real world issues.
We are live. Yes, please start.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I am Yash Mistry, a member of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan Cell, RGIT, Mumbai. I would like to welcome our guest speaker, Dr. N.C. Narayanan sir, our principal, Dr. Sanjay Bokade, Vice Principal, Dr. Sanjay Deshmukh, all HODs and faculty coordinators joined in this webinar. I feel very fortunate and happy to welcome you all in this webinar on factors to consider in planning for environmental friendly sustainable development projects. The concept of sustainable development is new, though it has been somewhat practiced even by the people of the distant past. Sustainable development is an economic, social development that meets the need of the current generation without determining the ability to future generation to meet their own needs. Sustainable development in rural areas is vital to the economic, social, and environmental viability of nations. It is essential for poverty eradication, empowering women, small-scale farmers, and indigenous people, including through securing a quietable land tenure supported by appropriate legal frameworks. Being an engineer, it is our responsibility to consider the factors required for sustainable development while designing and modeling projects for equitable and more environment-friendly future. We are quite overwhelmed to witness a response of 1300 plus students and faculty members across India for today's webinar. Now, I would like to hand over to Dr. Kiran Chaudhary ma'am, UBA coordinator, to welcome our dignitaries.
Thank you, Yash. I, Professor Kiran Chaudhary, coordinator of UBA RGIT, welcome you all present on this Google Meet and YouTube. Today's eminent speaker, Professor Narayanan from CTARA, IIT Bombay, respected Principal Dr. Sanjay Bukade, Vice Principal Dr. Sanjay Deshmukh, all head of the department, faculty members, UBA team members, and all the participants. A very good afternoon, one and all. I'm very much thankful to Professor Narayanan for accepting our invitation within the short time. I'm very much thankful to all the participants for overwhelming the response to this webinar. UBA RGIT is always conducting webinars, workshops on these problems and issues faced by the villagers for the development of adopted villages. Sustainable development is a need of present time, not only for the survival of this mankind, but also for its future protection. Unlike the other great revolutions in human history, the green revolution and the industrial revolution, the sustainable revolution will have to take place rapidly, concisely, on many different levels and in many different spheres simultaneously. On the technical level, for example, it will involve for the sustainable technologies based on the use of non-renewable fossil fuels for the technologies that take the advantage of these renewable energies like sun, wind, biomass, and the adoptions of these conservation and recycling practices on a wider scale and the transfer of cleaner and more energy efficient technologies to the villages in the developing nations. Always our RGIT team try to explore as much as possible way for the development of rural areas. I am sure today you will get this complete knowledge on the environmental friendly and sustainable development of the rural projects. Thank you for joining. Now I would like to request our principal sir to speak few words. Over to principal sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kiran Chaudhary. Good morning to, I'm sorry, this is now past noon, so good afternoon to all of you. And I'm happy to have Narayanan sir in today's event. I really appreciate, let me begin with some appreciation word to the team of UBA and the coordinator to take up this excellent initiative of awareness towards the sustainable development. Though this term is not very new, it has been frequently been used these days or from the recent past, as Yash said some moment before, but it's even not from the recent past. What I believe it is since long, but somewhere the technological development has went into such a role that the sustainability came into question. And that was the reason why it has been started speaking a lot. And this is a kind of awesome responsibility of every single person who is visiting this planet to know about it and take care about it. So this is a really appreciable initiative to have awareness of it and let us understand what are our promissory acts within this. To my mind, what comes as sustainable development is something to make this world a better place for the next generation. I feel that in nutshell, sustainable development is to make this world a better place for the next generation. And hence we need to identify the aspects seriously and promise ourselves to take care of all of them and develop them in a way which will be helpful for the coming generations. The dimensions of sustainable development, if I wish to figure out, it comes to my mind that it also includes the social progress, it also includes the economic development, and it also includes the climate and the environment within itself. So while we are talking on this, I feel that the care we need, our first job is to take care of this. Rather, not the job; it's the duty of all of us to take care of this planet, and it should not be used like a platform. We are a visitor here. No, we come on this planet, and on a typical day, we will say bye to this planet. But at the same time, we have to see that during our stay on this planet, what was our contribution to it? Have we added certain value, or have we destroyed some part of it? So it is the responsibility of all of us to please take care of this planet first of all. So we have many natural ecosystems, and all of them needs to be preserved. I will always not curse upon the technology that this has resulted into it, but somewhere the part of education which was missing in terms of sustainability or sustainable environment which was missing there has led to this particular cause. But now this becomes very important for the students of engineering because you contribute a lot in development of the technology. Now, while you develop the technology, your primary goal while developing must be to develop something that will be sustainable, that will be really sustainable. See, climate system is one among them which takes care of the temperature, correct temperatures, and atmosphere makes the right amount of the solar energy for all of us. So you guys deal with everything and you need to see to it that you protect all our natural resources. I will look at the economics part of the whole thing. You know that everything that has been developed by us and has been further put into trade, everything calls for an engagement of environment there, engagement of the natural resources there. So you have to see to it that you use the natural resources as much as possible and as best as possible. No, in spite of taking the routes which may be sometime getting your delivery dates maintained and at a very shorter time, but then you are using something which is going to add some pollution to this environment. You need to avoid this. You need to avoid on this. You need to think on those technologies which will be really helping into the sustainable development. We will look at those who are in the final years or those in the third year also. Those you must have come across the term called as supply chain management. You look at this as a very broad term. I will look at the supply chain management. You will not believe really that a pair of cotton slacks which are coming to you, how many stages it must have passed through, which it has gone through, right from the farm from where this yield was taken up. It moved to a ginning and pressing place. It moved to some garment manufacturing industry, and there it was processed. Then it was shifted. So it has been passing through so many things, and so much of involvement, so much of engagement of nature is also coming there. And finally, what is it resulting into? You will have to really make an estimate of it. Is it evolving some harmful gases for us, or are we still protected within this supply chain management, or it is the minimal impact which it is doing on the complete supply chain management? So we have to figure out that the supply chain management should not merely be a supply chain management in terms of efficient or responsive supply chain. You want something on today, and it comes to you on next day. The responsive supply chain. A efficient supply chain is whatever you want, and at a good economy, it reaches up to you. It's a efficient supply chain management. We need to see that while we expect the supply chain to be responsive or efficient, we need to also look at the supply chain management with an equal amount of magnitude, with an equal amount of impact and expectation that it should be sustainable. So, while closing, I would say to all of you that this is really a very serious topic to be learned by all of us, to be learned, to be understood, and to be implemented. Because I always believe that something which we have learned, we have gone through, we took some lectures. Now you would be coming across something that is excellent given to you by our speaker of today, Narayanan sir. But I believe that any knowledge that you have gained, and if it is not implemented, it is as good as you haven't gained anything. So I appeal all of you, all the youngsters who have joined us on this in this Zoom room, or those who are on the YouTube with us, everyone, to please understand the things, educate yourself, educate your neighbors, educate your society about it, and implement it. And that will be the greatest contribution which you will be doing for this nature, for the sustainable development. So I thank you all for giving me an opportunity to speak. So thank you so much. Over to the host again. You may go ahead, please. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your advice on the development of the accurate social and environmental accountancy system. Thank you very much for your valuable and inspiring words, sir. Now, I would like to request Yash to introduce today's eminent speaker, Professor N.C. Narayanan. Over to Yash.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I would like to introduce our today's guest speaker, Dr. N.C. Narayanan, sir. Dr. N.C. Narayanan is a professor in IIT Bombay who works in the area of water policy and governance with the normative concerns of sustainability and equity as point. Started his career as hydrogeologist and worked in an interdisciplinary team for land use planning using remote sensing techniques. In his later studies, he focused on the institutional aspects of water management and governance. After his MPhil in applied economics from JNU and PhD in development of studies from Erasmus University, Sir joined as a faculty in the Institute of Rural Management, Anand. Sir teaches and contributes the interdisciplinary MPhD program in technology and development and newly started public program in IIT Bombay. Sir and his have worked on issues of water governance, water conflicts, uncertainty and climate change, technology choices in urban sanitation, rural drinking water reforms and scalping of technology, alternatives, etc. Sir also has two ongoing projects working with a local government on canal regeneration and flood mitigation planning. He published 4 books and contributed to book chapters and journals. Now, without a further ado, I would like to hand over the session to Dr. N.C. Narayanan, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mestri, and good afternoon, everybody. I think at the outset, I should thank UMA, RGIT, Principal, Prof. Chowdhury, Prof. Mestri, and all the staff for kind of giving me this opportunity. Because I'm really glad, because I belong to CTARA, Center for Technology Alternatives for Rural Areas. We are a department of IIT Bombay, and we have MTech and PhD programs in technology and development, which is one of the kind of earliest programs. And we are one of the centers which actually is working for the last 35 years on appropriate technology, which Professor Bokade has kind of, very rightly kind of given us an introduction to sustainable development. From the technology angle, I think an appropriate technology debate was the kind of pioneering debate which actually brought in these. And sir, while you were talking, I actually introduced a slide on sustainable development, which I didn't have earlier. I took it from another presentation because I thought it will be right to kind of talk a bit consciously about, sustainable development inspired by what you said. So I think I will start my presentation, and hopefully you can see the slides. Tell me when my screen is visible. Are you able to see my slides?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And so can you see this now?
Yes, sir.
Figure.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is a conceptual figure of what we call as sustainable development, where we can see this as it encompasses all major dimensions of development. For example, there is this important dimension of economic growth, and then so maybe in the 1950s, for example, development was equated to industrial development and economic growth. But then over a period of time, we found that that growth is actually not trickling down as it used to be believed in. So we need something called social equality, redistribution, who gets what, those kinds of issues also came into a development paradigm. And then by 70s, we understood that there was a huge environmental issues, facing the globe. Whatever we actually kind of achieved in the economic and social spheres may not be sustained if we are not careful about the environmental issues. So then these three becomes a kind of three major dimensions of development. And then by 1990s, we came to understand this concept of sustainable development. This was first proposed before the Rio summit. There was this book called Our Common Future, which came out of this the kind of deliberations before the Rio summit of sustainable development, where development was designed. Sustainable development was defined as development that meets the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. So this temporal dimension of development and sustainability began to come in a major thing. But so from the technological angle, we can bring in a technology dimension also into that, because technology is neutral that way. Technology can be techno-economically efficient. It can marginalize labor, like it can displace labor, as well as it can affect the environment. You can also have appropriate technology which will absorb labor much more. That is the kind of Gandhian model where there's a people's first approach. Can technologies absorb maximum amount of people and give productive employment to them? That is another way of looking at development. And the third way of looking at development is even if we satisfy these two concepts, is the technology environmentally sustainable? So these are the three dimensions become very, very important. But the problem with the concept is that it's a bit abstract a concept. So that's why we have to ground this concept in certain contexts, and then the context become very important to kind of understand this. So that's why we are going to look at this concept with respect to one, what we call as the one sector, which is the sector that I work is water and sanitation. So let's look at how water pollution, wastewater, how can we kind of bring in this concept there. So at any point you can actually raise your hand, which I may not see, so you can intervene and ask questions. But I would prefer I'll try to complete it within kind of 40 to 45 minutes. So then we can have kind of interactions also. So coming back to this figure, you can see that this is a very familiar kind of scene. Any big town, small town, villages in India, not much in villages, but mostly in towns, that all the water bodies are kind of polluted. How does these water bodies get polluted? And should all water bodies remain polluted forever? So that's the kind of question that we are trying to answer through this presentation, and then unfold the concept of sustainable development, need for planning, all these kinds of issues. And then how do you stepwise kind of do that? That's also what we are going to tell. So in this presentation, we'll start with what is sanitation, limitations of conventional technology solutions for developing countries. That's where our kind of Aatmanirbhar ideas also will come in. Are these the available kind of conventional technologies suitable for our context? So that's a major question that we are asking. And then scope and challenges of alternative technologies which are appropriate. And by alternate technologies, we mean affordable as well as sustainable. Affordable to the majority as well as environmentally sustainable. And then what are the policy options for that? And then integrative alternatives to local governance. So sometimes technology can be very good in a small context or an institutional context, like a hospital or a school or a factory or something. But if we need water bodies to get better, we need to have it in scale. So at least at the level of a panchayat or a small town, if we don't do that, it doesn't matter. So that's why we need to integrate it into local governance. So these are the 4 elements that we will look at in this lecture. So basically, sewage or wastewater means there are 2 types of wastewater. One is the grey water, which is not very polluting, like wastewater from kitchen, from bathroom, from cleaning. This is called grey water. And then there is a very toxic water called the black water or septage that's coming from toilet and human waste. So these are the 2 classical things. And in a municipal sewage or wastewater, primarily is the domestic and commercial sources. Also, there is release from small-scale industries, and these are to be managed by the municipality. So, coming to the domestic pollution, we have the property owners who have on-site sanitation systems, like these are septic tanks in which it is absorbed into the soil after a kind of small treatment at the level of household itself. And then there is a public agency responsible, like a board. We can connect all these systems together through a kind of sewerage line, and then it can end up in a wastewater treatment plant at the end of the city, at the periphery of the cities or outside the cities. So these are all connected, pumped, and then this is basically it is mostly it's aeration that is being done, and then the wastewater goes into nature as clean water. So when we look at the history of sanitation, why we are telling us, because it is important from the Aatmanirbhar point of view also. In the beginning, it was only locally managed sanitation. There is when you look at the European context where all these technologies emerged, there was actually indifference to cleanliness in the beginning. And then whatever pollution that was happening, like the night soil and all, it used to get treated in the farms. So there was a good symbiotic relationship between farming and the kind of urban life that was there. But when industrial revolution happened, it became unmanaged because cities became big, and those much of waste the farms cannot kind of absorb. Cities also grew big, so this transportation and all became a major kind of a problem. So there was a mismatch between the supply of waste created and the demand in the agriculture sector. So here is where the centralized technology solution, and then cities became very unclean. There were many kind of communicable diseases also that happened from this plague and diseases like that. So this actually led to inventions of centralized sanitation technologies, where the waste from the cities, both solid and liquid waste, used to get transported through to the end of the cities, and it gets treated. And then came neo-centralized solutions by in the last 30-40 years. We found that this is a wasteful expenditure, so we have to recycle it. So then industrial kind of water began to get recycled into into kind of non-portable uses. So there's a lot of demand for water that can be saved, as well as there is available water in the premises also. And finally, we have something called the emergent solutions, which are more decentralized solutions, which are more on-site kind of systems. So we'll see how this is, this actually plays out. So in an integrated definition of sanitation, we have human excreta management, then good toilet provision like we have in the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, then collection and conveyance, treatment and disposal. That's the conventional system. And then there is the concerns for health, environment, solid waste management, and water supply system. And all this actually add up into the Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations, and this is part of the SDG 6 of the sanitation goals. Coming to urban sanitation in India, only 33% of the urban households are connected to piped water systems, piped sewer systems, and the urban population is increasing to 600 million. So there's increasing urban migration also. And now the sewage generation is actually 38,000 MLD. We have only capacity to treat 12,000 MLD. So majority of the STPs are not kind of working in full capacity also. So this solution of centralized sewage treatment plant, what are the problems with that? One, it needs high capital investments. It also needs high running costs, like chemicals and all, high energy requirements, and then it needs constant maintenance also. Also, to kind of reach it to the sewage treatment plants, we need more water, because it's basically transported through water. There's hydraulic transport. So we need more and more quantities of supplies of water also to kind of treat wastewater. And it's not suitable for lens dense areas, difficult terrains like coastal areas where there's a high water table, or hill areas. These are, this technology is challenging. And then because of that, civic agencies are unable to connect to all. For example, when this big kind of funding and all and comes, like the Jawaharlal Nehru Urban Renewal Mission and all, mostly the slums and marginal areas don't get connected. And this is actually 40 to 50% of the population if in any Indian city. So these are the kind of limitations to conventional solutions. And there's heavy investments also needed for that. For example, the central assistance increased from 3,700 from the kind of 10 5-year plan to 12 5-year plan. It actually increased to 43,000 crores. And the total investments needed in urban and water sanitation services, according to a report by the High Power Committee on Infrastructure, is that we need at least per capita 13,300 rupees for capital cost and 840 annually for operation and maintenance of this big system. So that's like 31 lakh crore and 8.17 lakh crore for operation and maintenance. When you come to JNURM, we found that it's actually per MLD cost is 3.3 crores for this kind of infrastructure, and the running cost of in 20 years could be 8 to 10 lakh crores. So I coordinated the policy group of the 7 IIT consortium Ganga Basin Management Plan, and our calculation at that time in 2012 was that it needs 57,000 crores of capital costs needed to exclusively for the Ganga Basin alone to treat class 1 and class 2 cities. This is the capital cost alone. And then you can imagine the running cost. So this means that this kind of a very efficient techno-economically efficient solution of STPs are very costly and unfair. So then we started a study from 2007 to 11 in a city in Sri Lanka. I was a co-guide of a PhD student who started this work. So I'm just telling only the conclusions of his work. He looked at one project funded by the JICA, Japan International Cooperation Agency, in one city called Kandy in Sri Lanka. Because Kandy city is very important for the Sri Lankans because it has the tooth temple of Buddha, and the Kandy lake, which is next to the temple, and the Mahavali river that flows through that is very polluted. So to treat these two, they actually suggested a big sewage treatment plant. And when we calculated, we found that when the loan comes from Japan, the construction contracts, engineering services, almost 50% goes back to the lenders. Then there is the huge benefits of selling the technology for the plant and pumping station, which comes from Japan. Then there is this operation and maintenance. More than 40% of the operation management costs is for chemicals, repair and maintenance, which also 90% of it goes back to the donors annually. Then we saw that there is a consultancy and inflated consultancy costs. Burden to borrowers, Sri Lankan government is responsible for laying sewer lines, which is actually 70% of the cost, repair the roads after ensuring power supply, and then inclusion of low-income settlements, estimated O&M cost of 10%, which works out to be Sri Lankan rupees 11 million per month. And then the power failure in centralized processing could cause entire system to shut down, and they have average 7 to 8 hours of power failure. So overflow of tanks will increase the organic pollution load by 700%. So these are the risks of actually connecting the entire pollution load of a city to a plant. Then I did another study in a city, the south Indian city of Trivandrum, where we found that this was a JNNURM funded and ADB funded project. We found that there is the Government of India funding coming to the Kerala government, and then it goes to the municipal corporation. Municipal corporation is responsible for this, both the planning and implementation, but they don't have any capacity. They have only a limited number of engineers to plan and implement. And then the Kerala Water Authority, which is like the MJP in Maharashtra, the water board, it has capacity, but it's not involved in this. Instead of that, they have put in a project management unit, which is actually and then it is a project implementing unit also in the municipal corporation, and this is all by foreign companies. And the consultants come from the technical service unit, which is actually one American company and one Japanese company. And then there is something called design services, which is at the lowest level. I'll come to that. Who is the design D&S in this? So this is the kind of governance structure for such a major loan when it comes through. We found that the consultancy amount is going up to 84% in the first year when it began, and then there is an average of 18% which being done in consultancy, and it's majorly going to these Japanese and American companies, and but ultimately because they don't know anything about the city, and then we found that this unit is actually composed of retired engineers from the public utility, Kerala Water Authority, and they get a pittance amount of consultancy, but the majority of the consultancy goes to this other people. When you come to the what is the share of the government, our government, central government and state government, we found that actually 30% of the amount is done by the state government, so state government and municipal corporation. And then they are spending something like almost 4,000 million, more than 4,000 million Indian rupees they are spending when the ADB loan is 9954. Similarly, from the JNNURM loan, they have something like 17,232 crores coming from central government. Similarly, 2154 plus 2154, 4,300 crores has to come from the state government. And then we found that it is actually very overestimated expenditure. So the question that we are asking is, if we have 4,354 crores plus this amount. We are spending something like 6,000 to 7,000 crores. Can we kind of do without this big loan? Is the question that we are asking. Why is this coming? It's coming because the Kerala Water Authority has financial crisis. There is lack of planning and foresight. Growing population with urbanization. There is no plan available. This invites soft loans with unequal and opaque terms that we saw. And then what comes is there is a say of global standards. So we need kind of global contracts and global tendering to be done for infrastructure development, which invites international consultancy expertise. According to us, it leads to de-skilling of the KW engineers because they are kind of not in the picture at all. This is done by a special purpose vehicle, a project unit, which actually works with the municipal corporation. So there are already the engineers who are trained are kind of not involved in this. And then we found that the plans are mostly done by retired personnel of the Kerala Water Authority, with international consultants countering bulk of the consultancy allocation. So the context has challenges to accommodate global models. So can we fit in models that fit in the context? That's the question. The point is that we don't have the kind of these rectangular shaped good urban planning models like in the West. So there's a lot of challenges to lay sewer lines and all. And these technologies we are not familiar with also. So so can we actually plan for the sanitation challenges in our own cities? That's the question that we are asking here. Is there any question up to now? Anybody has any clarificatory questions to make? Quick questions. What we are talking about, what we talked until now is that one, there is this huge sanitation challenge where 80% of the water that we produce become wastewater. And then we have a global model of sewage treatment plants, which comes from the kind of 19th.
Sir, there is no.
Yes. So what we're telling is, we have this European model of sewage treatment plants, which is the kind of basis of our environmental engineering kind of a curriculum. And then we found that, it's actually a kind of very expensive proposition for our governments. And because of that, major funding is coming from outside. And this funding actually de-skills our public water utility, our engineers. It's getting into a consultancy kind of a mode, but there is no real knowledge coming from there also. We found that it's basically our own engineers and our own kind of young people who are kind of trained and who are doing this. But then this brings in a kind of governance vacuum to the problem. So the question that we are asking is, can we have some kind of an Aatmanirbhar planning where we understand our sanitation needs and then plan for these problems ourselves? This is where we are. Is there any question to be clarificatory questions that you have? Anyone?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir. This is Kiran Chaudhary.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on this context?
Context is, I'll come to context. Context is, what is our wastewater generation? What is the kind of flows that we have? What is our problem that we are talking about in a town? That's the context. Because otherwise, when a plan comes in, it is a thumb rule calculation. You're supplying so much of water, so 80% of that becomes wastewater, and then you blindly kind of plan a plant for that, and then you think about the sewer lines to be laid. That's what we generally make. We are reversing the question, looking at the context and the kind of sanitation problem. Will you be able to plan? That is what we are trying to do. Okay. So then there are alternative technologies. That's what we are talking about. There are small scale sewage treatment plants can be there, which are low capital and low O&M costs. there are distributed costs. Like when you're doing it in a more decentralized manner, it's a less burden to the public exchequer. Can we make people responsible for pollution? Because when you talk about solid waste management, when we kind of bring it all together, organic waste, inorganic waste, everything together to a dump site, that's where the problem is. Similarly, we have black water and grey water. And grey water is big in amount, but it is low in pollution load. So if you separate at the beginning itself, from the household itself, your black water and grey water, the grey water can be easily treated, and the black water can be treated separately in a in an FSM plant, in a septic management plant. This can actually dramatically reduce the pollution load to be treated. Second, you can actually, if it is treated at the source itself, it can save 70% of the cost also. I'm not telling everything can be done at the source itself, but whatever we can do at the source itself, can we do it as a question. And then importantly, this utilization of treated sewage for local needs. Because if we use the grey water for gardening in the household itself, or at the community level, if you can have a constructed wetland and use it for some other kind of a purpose, then you are actually reducing the demand of fresh water that is needed, and also you are using the nutrients in the water for productive use. So we have many natural technologies like the phytorid system, which basically looks with a root zone treatment. Then there is this DWATS, which we have used, and this is actually anaerobic treatment. The water passes through a series of what you call as the compartments. Anaerobic treatment happens, and then it goes through a kind of filtering, and finally it goes through a root zone treatment. This is the soil biotechnology, and these are all kind of works on the principles of natural treatment. The advantages of decentralized system is that they prioritize treatment close to where it is created. They use little or no water, and then they segregate black and grey water, and then they reuse water and nutrients as much as possible. More cost effective because it's based on local skills and materials, and is designed for small scale, flexible, contextually available. And then actually the government policy documents are also kind of promoting this, like the National Urban Sanitation Plan, Sanitation Policy in 2008, the latest CPHO manual, the 12th Plan Document of Planning Commission. All these have actually suggested this is our future kind of a technology. But there are practical problems to kind of get into that. So one of the things is that, what is the kind of data that we are talking about? We need to understand the amount of water that is produced from the household level to the town level, flow of wastewater to be understood, because the flows are different. We are actually talking about how to understand the flows. I'll come to that. And then what could be the treatment locations and what should be the process that should be followed. So in a situational analysis, or to understand the knowledge context, we need to understand the status of water use, sanitation to identify issues to arrive at context-specific solutions. But the local government lacks data and expertise. So to fill in this, this data gap, we are actually looking at whether academic institutions can step in. What we call is the crowdsourcing of data. Data gathering by a large number of participants. It's called citizen science in practice. So the question that we are asking is, can local academic institutions, be the local knowledge providers for such activities? This is a very, the policy and governance aspects of it. We have a global policy discourse of, STPs and the highest technologies, which works through international financial institutions like World Bank, vision documents, which comes into the Government of India, which becomes part of the policy. And then there is a state public water utility, and then there is this urban local bodies, which have to do planning, assessment, institutional options, monitoring, and all, also gram panchayats. But here we saw that the expert knowledge, the international consultants and, Delhi consultants, they come and advise municipalities, which is a very costly affair. So the question that we are asking is, can civil society organizations, NGOs, academic institutions like us be knowledge providers to urban local bodies? That's the question that we are asking. So our ongoing experiments, I started in a town called Alibag, which all of you know. So what we did is we did first a mapping where we identified the three flows. One is the natural flows of streams. Second is the drains, which is basically the stormwater flows, and also the sewage. And in towns like ours, in a monsoon flow, all this becomes a single flow. So we wanted to understand these three flows, separately. But the stream flows, we know that we can make it into a watershed map. So in a watershed map, we actually kind of also looked at the closed drains, the unused drains, and kacha and open drains. And then we developed what is called the flow diagram. And these flows, we divided it into different watersheds. And since drains are also there, we call it a waste watershed. So in Alibag town, we had something like 11 or 12 wastewater sheds. This is topography, natural drainage, plus constructed drainage. This becomes a wastewater shed. And these different wastewater sheds, there are 9 wastewater sheds we can see here. And then we try to collect socioeconomic data in this wastewater sheds. Then it was very, very curious, very interesting to look at. There are coli fishermen in this pocket, who do open defecation. They don't have toilets, and even if they have toilet, they have only pit toilets. Then we found another sanitation zone where there are the middle classes and the upper classes, where there are apartments, pakka bungalows, who have actually good septic tanks and things like that. Then there are government buildings which are somewhere in between. There's a commercial pocket which are very densely populated. So each of these sanitation zone may need a different kinds of interventions also. And also, what should municipality do? Should municipality subsidize the coolies to get better toilets, or the kind of elites to give them sewerage? So that's the kind of questions that we asked. So the town can be disaggregated into different pockets, and there can be different solutions depending on the physical topography and flows, and also the socioeconomic situation like affordability. Who should be subsidized? Those kinds of questions also can be asked. And then we found that there could be different treatment plans also, because we found that all these drains end up either in a public pond or some kind of a wetland or a water body. So the question is, can these be developed into natural treatment systems, after ensuring that from households through drains we can treat that. It's not that all the polluted water should come to the last point, but can we have different levels of responsibility from households to the town level, so that we can have better solutions for sanitation. So advantage is that instead of a single STP, we can have multiple treatment points. Natural treatment with low capital O&M costs are possible. We can prioritize and sequence the kind of solutions, and there could be different kinds of models which can evolve out of that. So after this, we went to a town called Alapi. Why we went there is because there was a very successful decentralized solid waste management program going on there. So the question that we were asking is, can we actually also look at liquid waste? So this is in Kerala, and it's in central Kerala. This is you may all know this Cochin town, and there is this Arabian Sea here, and then here there is this lake called the Vembanad Lake, which is actually connected to the sea also. So this is the backwater pocket. You must have seen many kinds of so these were historically, there are canals there for connecting this Vembanad Lake to an old port in Alapi. So so these are the kind of conduits for kind of so earlier there is Western Ghats here. There were a lot of spices. So from time immemorial, spices used to come to Emerald Lake, and these canals used to transport them. So for example, this town was made in 1757 as a very planned town with these canals, because it was a port city, and then there was this very booming choir industry also there. So there's an intricate network of canals which were being used for many purposes, like for transport, for bathing, for household purposes. And then in 1990s, I think two things happened. One, tourism became a very important here because houseboats were discovered. Second, roads came. When roads came in, the utility of the canals declined, and over a period of time, the canals became very polluted. So the question that we were asking is, can these canals be, kind of improved? We even saw refrigerators being dumped in the canals when we went in 2017. And already, as I told you, there was a very good, solid-waste management program going on there. So this is what we did. I went with 18 of my students in our winter break in 2017. There was the MTech class of 28 people. 18 people said they are interested. It was not mandatory at all. Then we recruited 18, local students also. And first we did and then we developed a, two apps. One is called the both are open source, and ODK Collect, which is to collect the kind of socioeconomic information, and then there is this OSM tracker, Open Street Mapper. So you can kind of walk through the canal, and then you can map it, and also to take photographs. And both these apps, whatever kind of point information that you're doing, it can be photographed, it can be transferred to a Excel platform, and also you can put it in the GIS platform so that you get a spatial understanding. So mapping was done, identifying discharge points or hotspots. These photographs were taken. This was also uploaded. Household survey to map, the kind of sanitation infrastructure, how many of them have septic tanks, and what is the kind of flow, and then we kind of visualize this in a GIS platform. These are the details of this. And so this is how the town looked like. We actually divided the teams into different segments, and then they collected the data. And so we developed a model to understand what this is in very specific locations. And so this was 2017 December, and by 2018 May, we were very clear about we developed a protocol. We were confident about it. So we invited students from all over India, from all IITs, NITs, central universities. We got 330 students who came, and we conducted 2 summer schools. So what they did is, one, the tracking and civil engineering survey of canals, socioeconomic study of households, willingness to pay of households, then water quality assessment, and also environmental study of commercial and industrial establishments. So a tracking of canals, I told you, this is how a track looked like. Different canal sheds were tracked, and this is the final thing, that the canal network looks like this. And then this is the civil engineering survey. 330 students. You can see this committed student from Bihar. He couldn't actually get into the canal. There was a wall there, so you can see him how he is taking the data. So dimensions of the canal, length, breadth, width, slope of the canals, levels of canal bottom, and then we quantify the desludging requirement, desilting and filling, sidewall protection needed. So this is it. Length was something like 8 kilometers. Then volume of sludge, requirement of sidewall protection. So we gave a ready-made kind of plan how to kind of, rejuvenate the canal to the irrigation department, incorporating the costs also from their software. And so we proved that yes, engineering students can do design. Part 2 was a socioeconomic survey where I told you we looked at all this, the socioeconomic aspects, including the sanitation practices, and these were the households covered. And then the dramatic thing was, and then we look at the water quality analysis. We found that 93% of the dug wells in the town had E. coli presence, meaning it had some connection with the toilets. 82% of the kind of shallow tube wells and 18% of the, the water supplied by Kerala Water Authority. These are small bottles. It's called vials, which has hydrogen sulfide. We put this in. So there were 700 samples taken by these students. So what they do is, they take the well samples, put it in their own households, the households, and then come back there. So then we see that if it's turned black, it has pathogen presence. So it's not only a data collection exercise, it became a kind of, a conscientization exercise where the households kind of understood that they had E. coli presence. That means they didn't have good septic tanks. And then we calculated the average distance between the on-site sanitation systems like septic tanks and, canals. And so we found that, it's a major kind of a problem. So studies are all done. Then how to move forward was the question. So then we thought we'll take one canal and try to do some intervention as a demonstration to kind of show people that, if this is the problem, and then let us look at the solution also. So we had some principles. We decided that we will have principle of subsidiarity. That is, whatever that can be done at the lowest level should be done at the lowest level. That is from household. We should use only non-invasive technology because it should be affordable. It should not be highly energy kind of consuming. It should not be highly technologically intensive, because it should locally capacitate people to kind of manage the technology also. It should be, it can be made by the local people, local masons, local institution building for, kind of managing this. And then social regulation and green jobs shall come later. So this is the one canal that we took. And so first we did the flow measurements and also water quality assessments and wastewater sampling. And and then we found that in this whole canal, there were two hotspots. One was a colony of the most marginalized people. These were the ex-manual scavengers, and they are now municipal workers. They have only pit toilets. So these 52 households having pit toilets are the biggest, kind of hotspot there. And another one was a caterer. So we quickly began, gave a notice to the municipality, to the caterer, who actually shifted this. But these people did not have any kind of resources to kind of make it right. So we thought whatever interventions we do, we should kind of concentrate here. So first, and then we mobilized some corporate social responsibility money from a public sector. So first thing that we did was we replaced all their toilets into Pakka good toilets, and then connected them through a DWAT system. DWATs I explained earlier. So this is the final stage where there is this root zone treatment that's happening, and then clean water actually goes to this canal now. So that's one thing that we did. And then there was a community toilet. So because they didn't have individual toilets, so community toilets were there. So we turned this community toilet into a reading room. So and during the pandemic and other times, the children now study there. We also gave them a television during the pandemic for this online education. And on this side, you can see the aerobic units for solid waste management. So they used to dump their solid waste into the canal. Now they are kind of treating it in this aerobic units, so it becomes manure also for their gardening. So this colony has become clean, and to boost their morale, we mobilized some local artists, who actually painted the entire stretch of the canals and inside the colony. And this is our slogan. Like we had this slogan that this canals are not drains. This third order, and we also had so by the time we were working for 7-8 months, we mobilized some volunteers and youth. They call something called can Alapi can. That's it, or it can be canal Alapi also. So that I'll come to later. So this local youth initiative also began there. So for liquid waste management, what we did was, we did then a detailed survey of this. We mapped this, this canal, and we found that these houses doesn't have toilets in this entire canal stretch. So all these red households doesn't have toilets, and these green households have septic tanks. So we asked them, what is your on-site sanitation system? Then people reply that it is a septic tank. We quickly found that these are not septic tanks; these are just pits. So this exercise becomes a social conscientization exercise also. If we showed this in residents associations and found that this is the stage of your of your toilets. So this is how GIS can become a social kind of dialogue tool also. This is the grey water management similarly, and this is the kind of toilet based disposal. We found that most of them have only very few have good ones. Solid waste management also, we had a campaign to give them bio bins for dealing with their biogas and bio bins. And if people can't treat it in their own homes, they can bring it to this community kind of aerobic units where they can do it. And then we had a GIS study to understand the distancing of the bio bins, so that we worked backwards, and we found that in this where to place the bio bins. So we suggested that here and here, if you put 2 bio bins, all this red will become green, because then people have only less than 100 meters to walk, so they can do that. So this GIS tool is very interesting to kind of map the bio bin. Then plastic collection system, we had a survey for to understand the amount of plastics, and then we mobilized a once in 2 weeks collection. So this is the kind of collection planning, sanitation grids, and then we had collection points where people can kind of come and place their plastics once in 2 weeks. Collection is done. So the distance also we calculated similarly. And then we mobilized something called the Haritha Karma Sena, or the Green Army. Started with 30 women, now there are 70 women who collect and segregate these plastics, so they can sell it. It becomes a kind of economic proposition for them. Also, we are planning to kind of make them make organic manure from this from this organic waste. So that there's a user fee that's connected from households. Scrap value also, they get it from the shredded recyclable plastic. And then biogas and bio beans also they service, so they get a service fee. So this is a livelihood for 70 women who get only something like 5,000 rupees per month, but it's only 3-4 hours of work for them. So this is how waste can be made into propositions for resource. Finally, we had something called canal shed committees. So each household, we divided the canal into kind of 3 committees, so that I'll come to that. I'll show you a small kind of film that we done, and then they explain how these committees work. So this is the institutional building for that, so that they can actually regulate themselves to each other. So there's a conscientization of students also. During their holidays in their winter break, we actually mobilized the students, trained them on a street play, and they actually kind of did 30 street plays in this whole town, basically telling people what is the kind of problems with solid and liquid waste management. And they are now our household ambassadors who helps us to kind of take this forward. So my concluding observations is that we started with the kind of mainstream model of sanitation, where transplanting sanitation science from Europe, and we found the misfit in the context. These are universal technologies, universal consultants, and very wasteful solutions. So translating science and policy to practice through local governance. There's an alternate science also which we all believe in. There are alternate technologies. So how can that science be made into practice is what we looked at. We found that it needs a much more contextually relevant data, much more fine-grained data we need. And then we found that there are no consultants at the local level. So we are asking, do we have an academic social responsibility? So can education institutions be the kind of local consultants? Then the advantage for us is that education also can be made real world, engaging with local problems. Engineering is a practice science. Can we make it into local practice so that we can crowdsource data? So there's a large amount of data that can be crowdsourced, which will help us in better local analysis. Using tools like GIS, we can visualize this data. We can go back to people and to show all this kind of heat maps that we shown them, like this blue and green and things like that. So these heat maps also can be a monitoring tool. You can ask communities whether do you want to see, turn green here. Then let us go to better septic tanks. Institutional buildings for social regulation. And then, actually, canals were used as dumping grounds. So can canals be new commons? Commons is what all of us it's our common heritage. So now the students of your age, the students who are listening to this are telling people of my age that last 30 years you have actually kind of polluted this. Now we are taking this back, these canals back. We want to kind of make it better. So I think that is the kind of canality initiative that we are looking at. So these are not mainstream solutions. We call as heterodox solutions, which are alternate solutions which can be debated locally. So experts like us, if you go there, there's large amounts of data. We can write papers also. We have done, we have published also in international journals with this. So it doesn't mean that we become less academics. We can become better academics. We can still publish. Local participants come into close contact with local governance. My CanLP volunteers are very useful participants for the local governance. They're in high demand for making surveys, making classes and all. And also we found that we critique the government, but we found many sensitive officials like municipality, pollution control board, and they're all very helpful, and they also change in the course of time. Final reflection is is it wastewater or wasted water? Can be so waste is not waste, it is wasted, solid and liquid. Can we kind of make it into a resource? Then from economic efficiency of sewerage treatment plants to ecological and social understanding of sanitation through a sustainability lens. Then I think like CTARA has a very interdisciplinary course where we teach them about not only technology but social, economic, and even policy aspects of how to and then they have 2 months of village field stay. In each course, there is 5 to 6 courses. They have field visits to kind of understand real world issues. Tier standards is a very interesting thing. sewage treatment plants give the best quality water out. But then the point is that, that needs very high investments. So can we have incremental investments is the question that we are asking to the policymakers. We need much more research on decentralized technologies. We have put people to moon, in 1960s, but still we have septic tanks only to, kind of capacities to 20 to 40%. Can we have more efficient septic tanks which can go to 80 or 90% efficiency? Capacity building of local action with ULBs, academic institutions, citizen groups. Can we have a local expert base where we demystify our knowledge and give it to people? And then if this is done in many contexts, then we can advocate for better policies to kind of make it also scale up in the next 10 to 20 years. So can we all take it as our academic social responsibility to scale up these initiatives? That's the question that we are asking. So if you have time, 4 minutes, I can go for a film. Madam, do we have time?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's a small film. It's a film made by one of our volunteers who was a BA psychology person. He's not trained in films or anything. So it is very amateur, but he did it to kind of make meetings at the level of at residents association meetings to kind of have to have a dialogue with people to understand the problems and also the kind of solutions. So it's in Malayalam, but you have subtitles also. Is it audible?
No, sir. Can you share with the tab?
Okay, one second. I think it's in full volume, but I don't think you need volume. So you can't hear anything in this.
No, sir. Actually, what it is you can do, it is you share with tab. Then it is volume will come.
Share it.
With tab, a tab, last option.
What is that?
Present is there, na?
Autoplay.
Yes, in that it is a tab option is there, sir. No, not there. In Google Meet.
In Google Meet, okay.
But there is a one tab option is there.
Okay, let me. I think I have to get out of this. Yeah, here, where is it?
In present, you are presenting is there, na? There it is
So stop presenting, and then I can get into presenting. Tab. This one.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then go where?
That YouTube thing.
It's only I have Meet, Inbox, and WhatsApp.
No, sir. Present now is there.
Present now when I.
Ma'am, I suppose we can share the video.
Tab, when I go, these are the three options I get. WhatsApp, Inbox, and Meet.
Sir, open that YouTube in the screen and then you press tab.
Okay. Right. Okay, so it's better that I go to YouTube and get this done. Okay.
And press tab.
And then ask for Canality. Yes, Canality campaign video.
So we have shared the video. Please let me know if it is visible.
Okay, good. No, this is not it. This is not it. It's a different one. If you can do that with this one, yeah.
This one?
Yeah, that's that one.
Okay.
I think the other one you'll have to stop. I think the other one, can you switch off? This one, can you stop? Yeah. Now, can you try? Hello?
Bhavna? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
This one, yeah.
ആലപ്പുഴ തുറമുഖ നഗരം ഉണ്ടായിട്ട് 2 നൂറ്റാണ്ടിലേറെ കാലമായി. നമ്മുടെ ഈ ബെനീസ് എന്ന നമ്മുടെ ആരത്തെ പറ്റി പറയുന്നത് ടൗണിന്റെ ഒരു ഞരമ്പ് പോലെയാണ് ഈ കനാലുകൾ. ഞങ്ങളിങ്ങനെ ഈവനിങ് ഒക്കെ ഇവിടെ വന്നിരിക്കും. നല്ല വൈബുള്ള സ്ഥലം. പണ്ട് ഇതൊക്കെ ഭയങ്കര രസമാണെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ് കേട്ടിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ അവസ്ഥ ഭയങ്കര മോശമാണ്. ഇപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ കനാല് ശുദ്ധീകരിച്ചിട്ട് അങ്ങോട്ട് പോകുന്നുണ്ടേ ടൗണിൽ നിന്ന് വരുന്ന ഈ കക്കൂസ് മാലിന്യവും പിന്നെ ചില റോഡിന്റെയൊക്കെ കിടക്കുന്ന കാണകൾ, ആ കാണകളിൽ കൂടി ചിലരുടെയൊക്കെ കക്കൂസ് മാലിന്യങ്ങൾ ഇതെല്ലാം റോഡ് വളരെ വൃത്തികേടായി കിടക്കും. മഴ പെയ്തിട്ടുള്ള അഴുക്ക് മുഴുകി ഈ കടയിലേക്ക് വീടിലേക്ക് കയറി. There is an improvement. Canal itself is not improved. The surrounding has improved. Local people has to take initiative. ജനങ്ങൾ സ്വയം ചെയ്യേണ്ട കാര്യങ്ങളാണ്. ചെയ്യാവുന്നിടത്തോളം നല്ല ഇവർക്കൊന്നും ഒരു ഉപദ്രവമില്ല. കിഴക്ക് പഞ്ചാബ് വന്ന് ഞങ്ങൾ കടന്നു പറ്റതാണ് കൂടുതൽ. അതുപോലെ എന്തൊക്കെ ചെയ്ത് ഇവർക്കൊക്കെ നിയന്ത്രണപരമായിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഒരു വീടുകളിലൊക്കെ വരുന്ന ദുഷ്ടമായി അതിനൊക്കെ നല്ല രീതിയിൽ നിയന്ത്രണം ഉണ്ടാകും. ഈ കനാൽ ഇങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ നമ്മളല്ലേ
അപ്പുറവും ഇപ്പുറമുള്ള വീടുകളിൽ ചേർത്ത് ഓരോ കമ്മിറ്റികൾ തുടങ്ങിയാൽ എന്താ? ആ ഭാഗത്തിന്റെ ഉത്തരവാദിത്വം അവരെ ഏൽപ്പിക്കുക. അവിടെ ഒരു CCTV ക്യാമറ സ്ഥാപിച്ചാൽ ആര് വന്ന അവിടെ വേസ്റ്റ് ഇട്ടാലും തെളിവോടെ പരാതി കൊടുക്കാം. ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു കനാലിലുള്ള എല്ലാ കമ്മിറ്റികളിൽ നിന്നും തെരഞ്ഞെടുക്കുന്ന ആളുകളെ ചേർത്ത് ആ കനാലിൽ വേണ്ടി മൊത്തത്തിൽ ഒരു കമ്മിറ്റി തുടങ്ങാം. ഒരു കനാൽ വൃത്തിയാക്കാൻ 3 പേരെ മാസക്കൂലിക്ക് നിയമിക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ തന്നെ ഇതിൽ നിന്ന് എത്ര പേർക്ക് തൊഴിൽ ലഭിക്കും? ഇങ്ങനെ ഓരോരോ വലിയ കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് എല്ലാവരും ചോദിച്ചാൽ
നമ്മുടെ തോടുകൾ ഓടകളാവാൻ പാടില്ല. റോഡുകളെ തിരിച്ചു പിടിക്കുക.
റോഡ് ഓടയല്ല, റോഡോടല്ല, റോഡോടയല്ല, റോഡ് ഓടയല്ല, റോഡ് ഓടയല്ല, റോഡ് ഓടയല്ല, റോഡ് ഓടയല്ല, റോഡ് ഓടയല്ല, റോഡ് ഓടയല്ല, റോഡ് ഓടയല്ല.
Thank you. Just basically to get that message out, that canals are not drains. So I'll just show you one more time my slide. You can see my slide now. Can you see the slide?
No.
So I have to go back. Just one slide I have to show you. Are you still sharing? Are you still sharing? Then you should stop sharing. Then only I can share. Now it's okay?
Yes, sir.
Now it's coming. You can see this now?
Yes, sir.
A lady?
Yes.
You remember her? She was the one who was profusely complaining.
Yes.
That we have all the problem because you saw that that very dirty place, That's where we intervened. So this is a new toilet, and see where she's standing. That was the original drain that we had. So that's a transformation that we could make to this one place. I think that's the little thing that we could do, and I think this might is what is our biggest achievement in this whole exercise that we did. Thank you very much. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. There are some questions from YouTube that if you please allow me to ask. There's a question from Mr. K. Sivasankar, who has asked that how can we utilize, because our nation has a lot of natural resources already, some of them are even unknown to us. How can we utilize the ideas of intelligent engineers, and how can we make use of these natural resources for water treatment?
It's a very general question. I think the message that's coming out of my presentation is that we should have contextual studies and very interdisciplinary kind of studies also. So look at the kind of knowledge that we have to use in this. We use civil engineering knowledge, we use environmental engineering, economics, sociology. All this had to come together for kind of understanding the problems in one context, isn't it? And not only that, policies which are actually kind of coming into that, the local governance that is there. So an interdisciplinary team of engineers, if Mr. Sivashankar is in a context, if he can mobilize, he can understand the problem. What's the problem that he wants to study? Second, we should have a kind of more interdisciplinary understanding in a context. Then I think the solutions will emerge from there. It's not only our wisdom. There are people living there for centuries, like generation after generation. They may also have suggestions to make. So in our students, we asked teach them something called PRA, participatory rural appraisal, where after our analysis, actually, we go with an empty mind and kind of ask them, what do you understand by resources? What is the kind of resources here? What is the water here? What are the problems that you face? And then we try to match these two together. It's not that we go with the wisdom and kind of change things in a place. So I think that's the future of engineering also, as a kind of design discipline. I think this is very much needed. This kind of one, interdisciplinarity. Second, I think contextually relevant knowledge to be understood. I know that it's a general answer because the question was a general question.
Okay, sir. So there's another question from Miss Ashwini who has asked that are there any examples of converting single pit toilets to twin pit toilets in a very economical way?
I think there should be. I'm not aware of any kind of studies. I think these are all practices all over India. So I'm sure that single pit can be turned into double pit also. So yeah.
Okay. So there's a question from Mr. Sachin Pawar who says that his UBA team has been working on a lake rejuvenation project near Vasai, and they have completed some water quality tests. So if you can please let them know how they can proceed in the project, and if there is any, what kind of help can IIT Bombay provide in this project?
Every help that we can do, please come and visit us. Let's have a online meeting sometime. Give a presentation that what I did, what we have done. Then we can take it forward from there.
Sure, sir. So we'll share your contact details in the YouTube chat so everyone can contact you at any time.
Yes,
There's another.
Madam can share my email also with them.
Yes, sir.
So there's a question from our side because we work in UBA, we work in villages closer to the people there. So like you already mentioned that based on your study, there is some expenditure made by the state and central governments for the upliftment of infrastructure all over India, and there is need for global contribution. But on what scale is sustainable development lacking based on unawareness of local communities, and in what capacity can they participate?
It's not local communities alone, it's us also. I think engineers are also very unsustainable people, the way you plan, So that's why I told you, I think let us with humility work and look at issues, and then local people will also, when we gave them, better kind of circumstances, they are now continuing that. Even they are actually kind of, mobilizing 3,000 rupees per month, this very marginal community, and paying one of their own persons to kind of, manage these things that they have already done that. So once we have the will, then we have to work with people and then kind of tell them, so, and it should be concrete things like, is it segregation of waste at the household level, and then what could be the kind of solutions that are there. So we started from households like biobins and biogas. We told them, and then there could be maintenance issues of that. So we should have some people kind of doing that. And every household may not be able to do that. There may be a land issue. There may be other issues like both spouses may be working. So those kinds of issues are there. So then we have biobins at the community level to kind of do that. Then plastic, if you're not collecting, then you have to burn it. So in 2-3 weeks, I think if they keep, there should be a kind of collection point. And then all this can be incentivized if a small group of people can do it at a part time, like what we have seen as the Green Army. So I think blame will not happen. Telling that people are not right. We cannot start with that. The starting point should be what we can do. How can we kind of make people kind of come. So our scientific knowledge alone will not work. One of the very wrong presumptions that we start with is that, I have very good technology. I have very good science and technology. It's the people who are the problem. It's the government who is the problem. I think instead of that, we have to tell about that, what I have, what I can do, and how can I actually kind of work with people and government. I think, that's it. So there's a process aspect also to it. So in our curriculums, we can bring that process or aspect only by engaging. Students have to get engaged. And only then I think, so students have to get engaged. Faculty has to be open in engaging with this. And then I think, solutions will emerge from the context. And it's not easy also. There is politics, there is interest. Whatever we want to change, these are all very entrenched interests are also there. Because when I wanted to kind of take plastics and, give it to this green army, there's a huge interest in the municipality with a contractor who is actually buying the waste. And actually he's paid from the municipality to take the waste away. So you can imagine the kind of scale of activity involved in that. So when it is kind of coming decentralized, when it is getting into these kind of green army women, there will be resistance from both angles to kind of but there's only one way is to kind of keep on acting. So it's not easy. It's not like our lab work or finishing with a nice solution and a paper. We feel good that we have done our job. This is much more kind of a strenuous activity, which if we feel that we have a social responsibility.
Sir, since in answer to that question, you've mentioned that we as engineers should focus on solutions. Lastly, one question is that we are aware that as compared to the cities, there is better ecology in the villages. So what precautions should we take to bring technological development in such villages without causing any harm to the existing environmental conditions? Excellent question.
Excellent question. I have a concept called leapfrogging to sustainability. And there's a hierarchy that our most kind of backward villages are the most sustainable because they use very less resources, and they don't pollute, they don't make much waste, and they are very frugal in their lifestyles. So they are the most sustainable. The other extreme is Bombay and New York. And when you reach New York, you feel that you have reached your destination. Bombay or New York, that's your destination. These are the most unsustainable kind of pockets. So when I started this work after 5-6 years, I went and kind of worked in one US university for 1 year. It's called University of California, Berkeley. And then I had very sensitive environmental engineers also was working with me. And then we realized this, these industrial technologies, they have locked in there. They are the prisoners of their industrial technology. They are locked in. They have to have waste dumps. They cannot sustainably, use solid waste. They have big sewage treatment plants. So they have to kind of pump all the water into peripheries. You need pumping stations, you need energy, you need chemicals, and then you waste that water. Actually, you don't actually take away the nutrients or anything. So that's a linear trajectory. Whereas sustainability needs a kind of cyclical kind of trajectories also, and villages have cyclical. Like they put their grey water already into their kind of gardens. In Kerala, each household has 3-4 coconut plants, and all grey water is utilized there. So why should we kind of, and then black water, if you can have an FSM unit or a very good septic tank unit, which has high efficiency, which we can invent in the next 4-5 years. Why should we kind of think about all these big investments and big technology, which actually is very good for the kind of Japanese and American governments and World Bank and their own consultants, and so, and then the kind of consultants that go from IIT and IIM. to PricewaterhouseCoopers, and these big five, we call the big five consultancies. What should the other engineers do? Other engineers should challenge them and tell that we can take care of ourselves, our villages, our towns. So we should have a cadre who should actually look at these kinds of technologies and these kinds of activities. I am now employing 12 engineers from the local context. Only 15,000 rupees they get. But one, it's their first job, and they have enormous job satisfaction because they are working and they have a big name in the communities that they do. And if they get other jobs, they will go, and the next set will come in. And then once these activities get scaled up, they can get better pay also. Otherwise, everybody is waiting for Infosys. Every branch of engineering is waiting for Infosys campus selection. And how point not one person gets that? What do the others do? So we have a single imagination. So that's why I told you this unsustainable New York way is our destination. This unsustainable, kind of, financial job in Bombay is another of our aspiration. So can we have, kind of more kind of varied aspirations, and with some value systems? That's the way to sustainability, and that's what sustainable engineering is. My dream is to kind of we all work together for a sustainable engineering curriculum to save even engineering, because otherwise there's not much demand to the kind of big knowledge that we are kind of producing. If the knowledge that we are producing doesn't kind of affect the larger majority of people and places and sectors, what is that knowledge worth? So it's a fundamental question is what we are asking. It's not some activities that we are going to do. We will ask fundamental questions on pedagogy, fundamental questions on our, kind of social responsibility, and also activities. And we will be self-critical of our disciplines, our actions also. I think that's what is going to kind of bring in more creativity to kind of the newer generation that's going to come. I'm sorry that your lunch is waiting, but I am willing to engage if anybody is interested.
Sir, there are no more questions from anyone else, but we'll surely share your contact details with them so they can contact you via email or any other source.
Yeah.
Lastly, I request Ishika to please continue with the vote of thanks.
Ishika, unmute
You're muted. You're muted, Ishika. You can unmute yourself.
Sorry. Thank you, ma'am. On behalf of Manjara Charitable Trust, Rajiv Gandhi Institute of Technology, and UBA Cell of RGIT, I, Ishika Dongre, Student Coordinator of UBA, am happy to express the vote of thanks on this occasion. First and foremost, I express my gratitude to respected Dr. N.C. Narayanan sir for accepting our invitation despite his busy schedule and delivering a highly effective session on factors to be considered in planning and for environment-friendly and sustainable development projects. Sir, the talk was a complete package of knowledge and awareness to each and everyone present here. We got insights on how we ourselves could be a part of making an environment-friendly, sustainable, and self-reliant India. Once again, thank you very much. Now I express my sincere gratitude to our visionary leader, Honorable Principal, Dr. Sanjay Bokade, for providing support and guidance in organizing this webinar. I would also express my gratitude to Vice Principal, Dr. Sanjay Deshmukh, UBA Coordinator and HOD of Applied Sciences and Humanity, Dr. Kiran Chaudhary ma'am, who guided us throughout the entire process. Also, I express my gratitude to head of all departments and staff members of Institute for the cooperation. Now I thank the whole UBA team for organizing such an informative and beautiful webinar. Lastly, I thank all the participants for their active participation in large numbers. Thank you all the best for the upcoming opportunities. I conclude this webinar with the national anthem, I request Gaurav to play the national anthem.
जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
We are given the